I was told that it was going to progress. I was in college that I started to see other people living life normally without getting super fatigued or uncomfortable by their body and what was going on with their body. So I was diagnosed with lymphedema.
Hey everybody, welcome back. Today we are honored to have Monica as our guest on this episode. Monica, I'm going to pass it on to you to introduce yourself to our audience.
Hi everyone, so happy to be here. My name is Monica. I am a wellness entrepreneur and content creator, and we're going to get into all the things about how I overcame a chronic health issue, and I'm just super excited to be here. So thank you for having me.
Thank you. So let's just jump right into it. So if you don't mind me asking, what were you diagnosed with?
So I was diagnosed with lymphedema. A lot of people get lymphedema after a cancer diagnosis, specifically from like chemo or radiation. But I did not have cancer, so this was just the primary lymphedema is what it's called.
And how old were you when the diagnosis happened, and what was life like for you back then?
So I was I had just graduated high school. My senior year of high school is when I started noticing health issues happening, and it wasn't really something that made a lot of sense to me because I had been relatively healthy my whole life. So I just started noticing random swelling and inflammation. And once I went through the process with different doctors and my pediatrician and different specialists. Once I was able to actually get diagnosed, it was the summer after I had graduated. So, um, my life was pretty much at that time when I had gotten the diagnosis. I kind of wrote it off a little bit. I was kind of like, okay, yeah, whatever. Like, I was kind of not young and naive because I knew it would have an impact, but I didn't realize how big of an impact it would have until I got to college.
And that's so true, like, because you don't think about so many things until we're at the point where we're becoming young adults. We're in college, we have to start doing stuff by ourselves. And then we're also becoming more self-aware of like who we are and what's going on. So I can imagine like once you like, I guess like the shock, like once everything hit you in college and what that feeling was like.
Hmm.
A lot of times, like when we think about getting a medical diagnosis, I feel like the next question that pops into our head is what is the treatment? You know, like how can we cure it? How can we fix it? How can I just make everything like go back to the way it was before? So, what was it like for you when you got the understanding that there was no medical treatment for your disease at that moment?
So, technically, lymphedema is a condition. They call it a condition that is progressive. And I wasn't necessarily of the opinion where I was like, I want to go to life before I had this diagnosis because I had never been like the most athletic person, the most fit
Mhm.
person. I was relatively healthy. Like I said, I didn't have any crazy prior health issues, hospitalizations, or surgeries or anything. However, I wouldn't say that I was the poster child for health by any means. And it wasn't until, like I said, I was in college that I started to see other people living life normally without having to take extra steps in their day, without having to care for themselves extra, without getting super fatigued or uncomfortable by their body and what was going on with their body. And the treatment that I was told that I would just use to manage the condition, and I was told that, it was going to progress. The treatment was essentially manual lymphatic drainage massage therapy, which I did go to every single week, and wearing a compression garment, which I did also wear. But beyond that, I wasn't given any like lifestyle, more holistic health factors. And after a short period of time, like just a few months being in college, I was like, yeah, this isn't going to work for me. Like, this is not the life that I want to live. And I remember asking multiple different people and specialists, like, what can I do to help myself naturally just be healthier. That was like my first phase of thinking. It wasn't until later that I was like, no, I can overcome this. Like, I don't have to live with this forever. And so, really, once I started getting people telling me basically there's nothing you can do and it's going to be like this and it's going to get worse, then I was like, No, I don't accept that."
Wow, that is huge. So at that time, and I don't know if things have changed now, like, is there like pharmacological treatment, like a drug of any sort to assist with lymphedema now?
From what I know, there is. I don't know that much about it. I just remember like seeing it somewhere or reading about it because I do share a lot about my journey with lymphedema and lymphatic health in general. I share a lot online, so I will get some people saying, I think I got a comment one time that there was some sort of medication that they were prescribing to people who got lymphedema, but at the time that I was diagnosed, there was no medication, which I personally think was a blessing in disguise because it would have taken me further from what nature gives us, you know?
And it's so interesting how it's kind of like the lack of something is it's kind of what pushed you into choosing yourself and also choosing like a healthier path that you can ultimately like share with other people. So before we kind of like get a little bit more into the holistic treatment path that you went on, how would you describe like your interaction with the healthcare providers at that time? Because a lot of times we see them as basically our medical saviors, like they're the experts, they know everything. Obviously, if we have a problem, we go to them, like whatever they tell us is definitely like the truth. We're going to follow that and it's going to be right. But what was your perception of those interactions?
Yeah, so it's kind of a little bit of a longer story because I started developing issues with my menstrual cycles when
Mm-hmm.
I was a teenager. And at that time, I was seeing two pediatricians, one general, just like overall physical, and then one more specifically for hormones, like hormonal health. And at the time, I did see this doctor as more of like, I wouldn't say I put like everything into her as a full-on savior, but I really weighed heavily on what she told me. And I was told, take birth control. It will help you. There's absolutely no consequences. It's totally fine to be doing this. And at the time, I was like, okay, well, then I should just do it because the doctor's saying it. So if the doctor's saying it, the doctor knows what she's talking about. And I got to trust the doctor because I'm not a doctor and she is. Like,
Yeah.
that was my mentality. So I went on birth control for several years. But then later, with all of the lymphatic issues that I started developing, the more experiences I had with doctors and specialists and just the medical system in general, I was I was slowly but surely, and then towards the end, very quickly, became very skeptical of, I want to say this the right way, because it's not that, doctors and specialists don't have the right intentions. It's more so the system. But I was just very skeptical that they would actually be able to help me in terms of actually getting healthy versus putting more of a band-aid on the issue. And you know, I know that you do a lot with financial health as well. So that part aside with the insurance and everything, just with seeing medical providers and asking questions that at the time I thought were very basic, things like what should I be eating? How should I be moving? These very basic fundamental aspects of our health, the answers that I was getting, they just weren't cutting it.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think as I started asking more questions and as I started being more of an advocate for my own health, that's when I started to lose a lot of trust in the system. And what's the saying? The straw that broke the camel's back for
Yeah.
me was when I had seen a lymphedema specialist. This was right after I was diagnosed, supposed to be one of the best in the country, also happens to be a surgeon. So I went in the office when I was 18, the first appointment that I had. And I was basically, I felt like I was being scared. Like they were purposely trying to scare me into surgery because I was told that if you don't get this under wraps, then you're going to need to have a surgery that is very high risk and minimal benefit. And I was sitting there thinking to
Mhm.
myself, why would I do it? Like if this is such a dire thing, but I don't really know if it's going to benefit me and it could potentially offset the benefits more with potential consequences. That didn't make any sense to me. And so I continued asking those basic fundamental questions. Answers were not cutting it. Answers like, just eat healthy or just like take care of yourself. And I'm sitting there like, what, how? Like, what does that
Yeah.
mean? I don't know
Yeah.
what I'm just like, what am I supposed to do? So after that first appointment, I had seen the specialist after I felt, very discouraged. I decided to follow the holistic path. And a year later, when I had went back for a follow-up appointment, the doctor was very surprised and told me that whatever you're doing, keep doing it because you somehow have gotten better. Which a year prior, I was told that there was no way that I would ever improve. And after that experience was when I was like fully lost all trust in the system, basically.
Wow. That is tough because I feel like you're not the first person who has explained a similar story to me where it's like you're told to do better. You're told like, hey, go work on yourself, eat better food, exercise more. But then the training wheels of getting to better is not actually provided. So how did you actually develop like your own system of understanding like how to do better for your body?
Okay, I love this question. So, my line of thinking at first was, and my parents were very helpful. My parents always supported me with more of like the natural holistic side of things. And that's why I said I was relatively healthy my whole life because they had instilled a lot of healthy habits. So, my dad actually found a book that was like a diet for lymphedema written by different doctors. Think a nurse practitioner, even, just people who had experience with lymphedema. And I think maybe one of them even had lymphedema themselves. So, I started learning about just a better diet. So, what started as a better diet just to help manage turned into and I know that there's like a lot of different opinions about social media, but at the time, I was learning so much from other people online who had been diagnosed with a chronic issue and who were sharing their experience with a holistic path. So I had started watching other people, learning about the lymphatic system, learning about how different chronic issues happen, not just, something you wake up with because it's something that happens that accumulates over time. And then I started thinking to myself, well, even if these other people have something else, let's say rheumatoid arthritis or fibromyalgia or something that
Yeah.
I don't have, even still, if they could heal and overcome things, maybe I can too. And it just became this sort of like, I wonder if type of thing. And
Hmm.
then one day I decided to just Google, how to heal lymphedema. I was like, you know what? Let's just see. And I had found two people on this, I don't even think it's up anymore. They were like these random back-end forums, websites. I don't even remember what they were, but just people, one gentleman and one lady, and they both were diagnosed with lymphedema, and they wrote all the things that they did, and they were like, I don't have this problem anymore. Even though doctors told me that I would have it. And so I started following what they were saying as well. That was lining up with what I was learning about the lymphatic system in general for just anyone who's a healthy person.
Hmm.
And I just started continuing doing it every single day. And even within the first couple weeks that I had changed my diet just from the book that I had, I started noticing my body responding. So that to me was
Wow.
a sign that I was moving in the right direction. And I just kept consistent with that, with learning and then applying what I was learning and seeing how my body would respond.
Wow, that's amazing because you said two things at the end. You talked about learning, which was being curious enough to seek out the knowledge from other people, and then application, which I think like that's also another part that sometimes when we talk about change, we don't realize how much it takes to actually affect the change that we are learning. So
Yeah.
congratulations to you for
Thank
going down
you.
that path and applying it. And also props to you because you started seeing the effects like almost immediately. And that was like positive reinforcement to keep going on this journey. So a lot of times when we think of like the holistic natural journey, I think something that comes to mind is like choosing yourself, right? Choosing to eat healthier, choosing to work out and exercise, you know, putting yourself, prioritizing your mental health and everything you need to be afloat so that you can show up for the world and show up for those around you. But what are some financial changes that you may have encountered or you think people might encounter with going on such a journey?
Number one, with the finances, because there's a lot that I could also say about, choosing yourself, actually applying things, but that's a whole different conversation.
Yeah.
So financially, one thing with, insurance, how insurance works, it is a lot of times you just get the runaround. You have to build mental resilience to ask questions and be your biggest advocate when it comes to what's covered in your insurance. If things are not covered, and if certain things are not covered, how you can still apply it in your life without having that financial assistance. For example, I started seeing a nurse who would do manual lymphatic drainage massage for people with lymphedema, and it was at a hospital. And I kept getting the runaround at the beginning of every appointment. I would ask, what's my coverage? How much is this going to cost me? And I was basically just told we're calling the insurance and we'll find it out. And then it was like weeks went by. I found out that it was going to cost me, I think, like over $500 for an appointment, which I could not afford. I was in college. And luckily, by the grace of God, there was like a scholarship program at the hospital that I applied for. And I think a lot of people don't know that there are these different scholarship opportunities available. You just have to look for them. So luckily, my nurse told me about it. I applied for it and I was able to take care of that. But after that, I stopped going. And I could have stopped and not continued to take care of myself, but you can do manual lymphatic drainage massage yourself. There's free YouTube tutorials. There's a lot of ways you can support your lymphatic system. And so I think it's not necessarily an all or nothing thing, but you have to prioritize where your time and energy will go. And you also have to prioritize what your other expenses are because at the end of the day, even someone who may not have as many resources, the resources that you do have, you decide where they go. So, are you going to pay for a Netflix subscription or are you going to pay for an extra few fruits and vegetables at the store? And I think that even if you don't have a lot, make it go where is going to suit you the best. Instead of going out for drinks, don't go out for drinks. Get something that's going to benefit your body, and benefit your health because, yes, the system is the way that it is, but we cannot just fall victim to the system. And I think that mentally with the mindset, that's one of the biggest things that helped me overcome any health issues was despite what they're telling me and what the system, does or doesn't want for me,
Yeah.
for lack of a better phrase, I can make anything happen because I'm more of a spiritual person. I believe that anything is possible and I think everything happens for a reason. But more so, if you make things a priority, somehow it will be able to be prioritized. That's just what I've learned on my journey.
Wow. Like, like listening to you talk is so empowering because I've heard so many times people talk about the power of your mind, right? The power of believing, the power of showing up, the power of acting on what is important to you. And, like when I asked that question initially, I was thinking that we might go down the route of like the challenges people might encounter with like accessing like healthy food or even like the reality of having like a gym membership or mental health resources. But then something that you said was like, you can choose where your money goes, you can choose not to have a Netflix subscription and get help like fruits and get vegetables. You can choose to be like, okay, instead of going out to eat this month or something like that, I can put that money towards the gym membership or the coach or see what I can do there to make sure I show up for myself. And so it's like, even if you don't have a lot, there's always something that can be done to make it better.
Even if you don't have any money, YouTube is free. You can go
That's
somewhere that
true.
has public Wi-Fi, get on YouTube, download a workout, and do it at home. And I think that because money is a requirement in our society, we can't exist without it. Sometimes we put that mental constraint of like, well, I don't have, I don't have, I don't have. And even if things are less or scarce, telling yourself you don't have is only going to make it go down. Telling yourself, you know what, I may not have everything I need, but the thing that I need the most is my will and my desire, and that is enough. And I think that that's a huge mindset shift that a lot of people struggle to overcome.
That's true. I feel like even like for me, like you definitely minister to me right now
Oh, well, I'm
because there
happy
are
to
things
hear
that I'm
that.
like, oh, you can't do this, you can't do that. And it's like, what can you do? There's always something that you can do within reach if you just set your mind to it and act. Something, you can do something somewhere.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So circling back just a little bit, I know when you were talking about your interaction with the doctors, one of the statements that you used was that it felt like it was a band-aid
Mm-hmm.
and not like an actual treatment. So based on your experience and, your current journey, how do you perceive like the American healthcare system in regards to preventative care?
Huh. Um,
Or it
this
could be
might
really broad. Oh, what do you think, right?
No,
Based on
no,
your
I
journey.
I
Yeah.
just I'm a very direct person
Yeah.
and my initial answer is pretty much non-existent because the American healthcare system is a business. And I'm not saying that it necessarily is inherently a bad thing. You don't have to have a business, have something that's for profit and not help people.
Yeah.
However, when you have the business structured the way that the American healthcare system is structured, then you're putting profits over people. And when you're putting profits over people, prevention goes out the window because you can't profit off of prevention. Doctors profit off of, medications that they give to their patients. Medications are not all bad. However, they don't give an incentive when somebody has gone 2 months without needing to take something. They get an incentive when they've gone 2 months taking it. So that's pretty much my answer. It's basically non-existent with preventative care.
That's so true. Like I didn't even think about that. Like, because it's like there's no incentive for you as the patient, like being in a position where you take control of your life and where you can see positive changes without needing frequent interactions with the hospital system or frequent interactions with pharmacological medication.
Hmm.
But when you are dependent on that and those things get billed and billed repeatedly, it's like, yeah, to some extent, there is an incentive for you to keep
Hmm.
coming back and keep needing that system to assist you with that.
Yeah.
That is so true. Switching gears just a little bit, in our previous conversation, you talked to me about water.
Hmm.
And you mentioned that our body is made up of 80% water, and you're talking about like the healing properties of water. So, what is electrolyzed reduced water, and how does it help our bodies?
So, electrolyzed reduced water is actually the most natural form of water in the world. A lot of people don't know because we're just not, it's one of those things, we're not taught this in school, but it's one of the, when, like, let's say we lived in caveman times and
Yeah,
we were living near a body of water, there are properties in the water that are the exact properties that our body needs through the process of electricity because the earth is electric, we are electric, and when you don't have the proper I don't want to get too into the science, but when you don't have
yeah,
the proper flow in your body,
Yeah.
Dehydration just goes way up, and along with dehydration going way up, a lot of other things that accumulate turn into
Mhm.
chronic illness and they continue to increase. So, in short, it's the most natural form of water that we should be drinking. The only issue is that what we are doing to our planet with pollution, with plastic, it's not as accessible as it used to be.
Wow. So how did you find out about electrolyzed reduced water?
So I started going down the rabbit hole with all the holistic stuff, and I made a lot of changes with, diet, lifestyle, mindset, all the things we were talking about. And then one day I just remember looking over at my Brita filter because I was doing a lot of juicing and a lot of smoothies. I still do. But I looked over at my Brita filter and I was thinking, there's no way that this Brita filter is like on the level that I need to be at if I want to overcome a chronic medical issue. And I had learned that electrolyzed reduced water has actually been used in Japanese hospitals for decades, and it's
Mm.
actually endorsed by a preventative care association made up of medical doctors in Japan. And they recommend this specific water for prevention. And I was like, say less. That's all I need to know. Because if I have a medical issue and this is medical certified water, then it would be to my benefit to get it?
Wow. So how are you able to get it, and how do you think like someone listening to your story currently might be able to access that water?
So it comes from a device. It's a medical grade water machine.
Hmm.
You can either purchase it or there's a lot of different ways that you can finance. I work with people directly to help them finance, or you can find a store or person near you that has it and you can try it through them. The company that I am a distributor and I'm partnered with, we think sharing the water is one of the best ways that you can be of service because, like I said, it's water. It's one of the most basic things. And even if you're not in a position to be able to purchase the machine, although many people are, even if they think they're not because of the financing options, then you can still try it, drink it, and then just get educated on water in general. And that will be a huge benefit and assistance to whether it's lymphedema or something else. Oh,
Just,
I did also, I wanted to mention, if you study the history of electrolyzed reduced water, which there
mhm.
are still many places on the planet that have this natural water, but it's places like Norandau, Germany, Tilicote, Mexico, Lourdes, France, the Hunza Valley in Pakistan. So we can't all move to these places. We can't all live there.
Yeah.
But a lot of people will say, like, is it still around? It is still around, but it's getting more and more scarce. Anyhow, if you study the history of electrolyzed reduced water in the United States specifically, a lot of researchers had started learning about the benefits back in the 1900s.
Okay.
And the United States, despite the positive field testing of the water, they decided to invest in the pharmacological route of medicine.
Okay.
So it was
That
a,
makes
a
sense.
direct like fork in the road in the
Hmm.
United States specifically, because a lot of people, they're like, I've never heard of this. But if
Yeah.
you go to other countries, even Japan, where the electrolyzed reduced water systems are from, a lot of people know about it and they use it
Yeah.
in hospitals. So that's one reason why. But anyhow,
Wow. That's huge. Because that is so huge because I've never heard about electrolyzed reduced water before I met you. And so to think
yeah.
about, if we take it back to the time when we didn't have as much pollution, we didn't have, as much plastic and all of those things, I'm pretty sure to some extent, the waters that people were drinking at that time was probably cleaner and healthier. And, we had different ways of filtering it to make it even healthier for our bodies. But now we live like in cities and there's a lot of development and water has its own challenges. Like some
Hmm.
people are like, don't always drink tap water, it might not be the cleanest for you. Some people have reactions on your skin because of the water they use to like shower and stuff like that. So that is definitely huge, and thank you so much for sharing that with me
Yeah.
and with my audience. So what advice would you give someone um, in a similar situation about managing the financial challenges of having lymphedema?
Well, with lymphedema specifically, there are so many things you can do for free. And like I was saying, I think one of the biggest things is mindset. And not only removing yourself from a victim mindset, going from a victim to a victor,
Wow.
thinking, actually, this diagnosis, even though it really sucks right now, even though my life does not look how I want it to, my health doesn't look how I want it to, even if maybe you can barely walk, the fact that you're still living and breathing means that you can turn this around at any moment. And I think that that was one of the biggest things for me going from a victim to a victor mindset was like, okay, I'm not happy with the position that I'm in, but the person that got me into this position ultimately is me, regardless of any outside factors, any outside circumstances. And that's actually the best thing that you can realize because if you're the one that got yourself into a position, you're also the one that can get yourself out of it. So that's number one. Number two with mindset is because I mean, I'm very big on mindset, obviously. This
Yeah.
pretty much whole conversation is about mindset.
Yes.
But I studied psychology. That's like one of the biggest things, even outside of school, just with how I was raised, my parents, my grandparents, always talking about your mindset because how you view things literally changes your life. How you see your life changes your life. So, victim to victor mindset, but also taking baby steps and seeing even the smallest of wins as a big win and taking every single day as a small step and making your steps smaller is actually easier. There's a graphic, I wish I could pull it up, but there's a graphic of two people in front of two ladders. And the ladder on the left has these huge spaces in between each
Yeah.
leg. And then the other one's like these tiny little things. And it's
Yeah.
like, who do you think can race to the top faster? The person that has to make these big,
Jump.
jumps or the person that can easily just step by step by step by step. And so I think that from the financial aspect, if you are not in the position to be able to invest financially, it is not the end of the world. If anything, it gives you more power because you're like, you know what? I can do things without having to spend money. I can do things with me and with me only, and I don't have to rely on anything outside of me. So if you take all of the resources that are available for free online, and there is so much information available for free online, and you implement it, finances will get better as an indirect result of you doing whatever it takes to get better in your life because health is wealth.
That is so beautiful. Thank you so much for that,
Yeah.
Monica. So, what closing words do you have for us, Monica?
I think my closing words are that there is absolutely no circumstance that would keep you from working towards and becoming the best, healthiest, wealthiest version of yourself. And at the end of the day, it is your attitude that makes or breaks the difference. And there's nothing that you can't overcome. I truly, truly believe that there is nothing that anyone cannot overcome. If you are breathing, if you have a heartbeat, then there is still another page in your book, another chapter to be written. And how can you make even what you might think is the worst thing that's ever happened to you actually be the best thing that's ever happened to you? If you can figure out how to make that happen, then it's only up from here.
Wow. Thank you so much, Monica. I'm so honored to have you here. Thank you for your words. Like, I didn't even think that our conversation was going to go this route, but
Oh,
definitely, like, I have been touched. And I know that the people who listen to this will also be touched. And to the audience, I'm looking forward to seeing you guys on the next one. Bye.
yes. Thank you for having me. It's all God, by the way. I just gotta say. But thank you so much. And I look forward to listening to all the rest of your interviews as well.
Thank you.